What's up, awesome people? Hey, thanks for tuning in today. Hey, today we're going to cover fretboards, specifically rosewood fretboards, and how to airbrush Tru-Oil on a fretboard, specifically rosewood fretboards. Hey, and if you happen to have a maple fretboard, I'll go ahead and put a link right up next to us right over here, and you can check that out because it's a little different animal than this one. Alright guys, so I got a wild hair, you know, I really like Tru-Oil. So check this out, and I just did some close-ups of it while it was wet. And we'll do one when it's dry, but I got this super flat little brush, and all I'm doing is putting a light coat on the rosewood, just like that. I pre-treated the rosewood so that it's nice and rich and has plenty of moisture in it. That could be important. It doesn't seem to be affecting how the Tru-Oil lays down. But my goodness, what a difference. Whoops. Light coats there. Alright, let's put some light behind it. And obviously it's still wet, but the difference in color, my goodness. Let's see if we can get the light off of it for that. How deep and rich that is. Look how the wood grain just pops on it. That's pretty freaking cool. I'm excited. This is fun. I've totally been thinking about this, and well, should I or shouldn't I? And you know what? Why not? It's one of my favorites. Okay, next step what I think I'm going to do is just take a nice clean rag, nice little shop towel, and I'm just going to kind of wipe that in a little bit. I don't really want it to clump up anywhere and stay off them frets. Really spent a lot of time getting these frets right, so I certainly don't want to mess that up. Just kind of wiping the excess where I see it off here. Okay, waited a few minutes. Second coat is on. Just go along here. Look at that. Looks pretty good. Give you a top view. Gonna have a little bit of a sheen to it. Pretty nice. We'll see when it dries. Check it out tomorrow. Okay, day 2, and it's 2 coats and completely dry. So today we get rid of all the little buildups and make it shiny and new. Okay, so we're back. Done a little bit of experimenting here, trying to figure out the best way to get in between the frets without necessarily scratching up the frets. Since I've already, in my case, already done a complete fret level, you know, crown polished and dressed them all up really nice. I don't particularly want to scratch up the frets. You know, we may do a little bit of it, and I'll probably run a quick polish over the top of them when we're done. But to get in between them, to get this Tru-Oil that we applied now, I think it's 3 coats on the fretboard, to get it nice and smooth, come up with a couple of options I think that'll work really good in this particular situation. Now, if you have not done your fret polish, which is probably a good idea if you're going to do Tru-Oil on the fretboard. Now, if you haven't done that yet, you'd probably be better off and then come back after this is all cured and polished and use a fret protector and or board protector and do your frets last, and then get them all crowned and polished and all that stuff. But in my case, I came up with this idea afterwards. I hadn't really even ever thought of it, so we're experimenting. So in my experimentation, I found two things. That this, which is basically a Norton product, and it's just this really cool padded sandpaper. This started out as a 12 to 1500 grit, but I've used it a couple of times on some other projects and cleaned it up, and it continues to work really well. However, I would guess it's probably closer to 2000 grit right now. So that's our fine sand, if you will. So I've cut a few strips here that we can put in between the frets and work that. And then for some of the tougher spots, we've got some 600 here, and we'll do some little strips of them, sort of measure the fret and then do a little strip of it, not necessarily super precise. We'll do that, and then we can get in between them and kind of scrub the fret down just like this, right? Especially some of the more tricky spots where there's a little bit more buildup. And if I want to go through all the thing about masking it, airbrushing is the way to go. It atomizes like crazy, and super flat. You don't have to do almost anything to it, and especially if you add like a little naphtha to it, just like a 25 to 75% mix, it can be really effective. Okay, so here we are. We've smoothed it out a bit. We'll probably work a few spots, but other than that, she's pretty much ready. We'll clean her up with some naphtha for sure. Personally, I don't want to get rid of all of the grain fills. It is wood, and I like the fact that it's wood. I just want it to be nice and smooth and glossy. And I think we'll get there with that. Okay, so you can see we've already masked it off. We're going to go with an airbrush thing. Now, a couple of things to think about. If you're going to airbrush your fretboard, have on hand something. I have naphtha, and I also have that eraser so that I can immediately do the tops of the frets. And then later I'll use a wood protector, fret protector thing, and do the rest of the frets and get the Tru-Oil off of the frets. Obviously, I'm probably going to go for a repolish on my frets. It's a good bet. So I'm going to mix the Tru-Oil. This will be about 75%, and this will be about 20 to 25%, give or take. It's not rocket science, and it's not perfection, but it does help with thinning the Tru-Oil, which here all we want is a very thin coat that we don't have to do a lot of polish to, and let it dry. if you have a newer bottle, you might be okay. But if you have an older bottle of the Tru-Oil, it might have some gunk buildup in it. You're probably going to want to filter it. I'm going to filter it into my little cup here because I want it to go on, and I want no clumps. I want it to be really nice and thin. Hey, if you like what you're seeing on the channel here, I would really appreciate that you take a moment and subscribe. You know, maybe hit that bell too and notifications. But if at the very least, if you like this video, please hit the like button. I sure appreciate it. Any comments you throw our way definitely will get read and answered. So this is new territory. So we've got it all cleaned up. I cleaned it up with naphtha a couple of different times. I've taken my airbrush and blown it off to get all the dust and hairs and anything that might be hanging around that wants to be part of this paint job that I don't want part of this paint job. And then I'm going to shake my Tru-Oil really good, and I'm going to put some in the cup, about fill the bottom. A good tip for using Tru-Oil is always wipe the threads down and the top, because this stuff over time tends to get really sticky. Okay, so I wiped out the cap, did that. I'm gonna put it back on. Some folks like to store their Tru-Oil upside down. I'm still on the fence with that one. So I'm gonna fold a napkin. This one's gonna be for testing my airbrush. And now, so I'm gonna take about, I would say about 25% of the naphtha, which will really help atomize our Tru-Oil. And we'll take a little stick and we'll just stir it up. No hurry here, take your time. Give these things a chance to work together and to come together to do this. So then I'll set that aside. I'll get me a new cup. What I'm going to do here is I'm going to grab a filter. I got these at Harbor Freight. They're really cheap. I'm not exactly sure, but they're very fine filters. And so I stirred my stuff, and I'm going to set that aside for the moment. And then I'm just going to take and I'm going to filter it into my fresh cup like that, so that I don't have any clumps in my airbrush. So while we're on the subject of airbrush, I'm using a 0.5 needle in my airbrush at about 35 psi. I want it atomized. If I have to, I'll go a second coat, but I don't think I'm gonna. We'll see how it comes out. Preparation is everything. I can't stress that enough. Prepping is everything. So for now, I'll set that aside in a safe place. So now our Tru-Oil is ready, and for, you know, a vertical and horizontal kind of operation, you're probably going to want to put a cap on, even if you don't normally do it. So I'm going to fill this up. That should be plenty to do our first coat. I'll set that aside, get our cap on, and I highly recommend that you wear a mask. For this little job, I'm not gonna, because I'm trying to instruct you guys. So, but normally speaking, so I'm gonna turn my fans on, which have a filtration system on them. And so it'll get a little more noisy. So all I'm doing is I'm just making sure that we're getting our Tru-Oil, and it is actually coming out. So we'll go ahead and give it a go. And it really is a nice thing about doing it is that, one, you can use the air to help dry your work. And the other thing is when you add naphtha to your Tru-Oil, it dries really fast. Really fast. Just the very tip top of this eraser and some or naphtha, and go over the top of it really quick. Just by using the eraser, I'm not touching the fretboard at all, but it'll certainly make my cleanup of the frets easier. Because let's face it, that that crown where we all play our chords and our lead licks have to be just about perfect. Well, okay, it's been about 20 minutes. I mean, that's pretty close to a mirror shine. Not that I was necessarily looking for a real mirror shine on my fretboard. I just wanted a little bit of bling, and I got it. I didn't want, I didn't want to seal it completely all the way. I didn't want to take all of the grain dips out of it, but I didn't want them to look like little caverns either. And so I think pretty much achieved my goal. What your goal may be is different, but undeniably, Tru-Oil just rocks. Hey, thanks so much for watching. I really appreciate y'all. And you know what? Thanks so much for tuning in to the Bad Cat and this shiny new fretboard. Pretty cool. And give it a try yourself. And hey, remember, like and subscribe to the channel. Have a super duper day. And thanks again for